heading into midterms, what do they need to do? What can they do to, hold?
Well, one of the things they're going to be talking about pretty soon are the tremendous drop in drug prices. We've cut drug prices by 1,200, 1,300, 1,400, 1,500%. I don't mean 50%. I mean 1,400, 1,500%.
That was Donald Trump with a big announcement that he's cut drug prices by as much as 1,500%. And if that math sounds kind of weird to you, that's probably because if you cut drug prices by 1,500%, that would mean drug companies would be paying you an exorbitant amount of money to buy drugs. So, good news, everyone. If you've got cancer, under Trump's new plan, you're all but guaranteed to be a millionaire. I legitimately don't know whether Trump is too stupid to know what he's saying or if he knows full well what he's saying but thinks that his supporters are too stupid to understand the truth. Either way, pretty disqualifying. Ironically enough, the guy who is right now telling us that drug prices are dropping 1,500% is the same guy who did this.
Why did you fire the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics?
Because I think her numbers were wrong, just like I thought her numbers were wrong before the election. Days before the election, she came out with these beautiful numbers for Kamala, I guess Biden/Kamala, and she came out with these beautiful numbers trying to get somebody else elected. Then right after the election, I think on the 15th, November 15th, she had an $800,000 or $900,000 massive reduction. Said she made a mistake. That woman's numbers are.
So Trump doesn't believe in her numbers, but here he is thinking that you can reduce the price of drugs by 1,500%. Please, someone, make it make sense. In fact, in the same gaggle tonight where he created new math on drug prices, he also spoke about the fired employee from the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
In many respects, we're seeing phenomenal numbers in terms of the business we do with other countries and the business we do within our own country. I mean, really phenomenal numbers. We'll be announcing a new statistician sometime over the next 3-4 days. We had no confidence. I mean, the numbers were ridiculous, what she announced, but that was just one negative number. All of the numbers seem to be great. And so we'll see how that comes out. And if you remember, just before the election, this woman came out with these phenomenal numbers on Biden's economy. Phenomenal numbers. And then right after the election, they announced that those numbers were wrong. And that's what they did the other day. So it's a scam, in my opinion. My opinion is it's just additional scam.
Did you catch what he said? That before the election, numbers were posted that were ultimately altered. That's true. They were revised downward, just like they were revised downward here. What does that tell us? Numbers get revised upwards and downwards all the time, under both presidents. It happens pretty much every single time. Before elections, after elections, during presidential terms, that's how it goes. And Trump knows that the numbers are accurate. He just needs to pretend that they're not because he needs to protect his own image. And part of pretending is deciding who the scapegoat is going to be and laying the blame on that person. Trump chooses this employee from the Bureau of Labor Statistics because he is a small, petty man who can never take responsibility for anything that he does himself and always has to blame someone else. Firing this statistician is like failing a math test and blaming your pencil. And while all of this is blatantly obvious, there are still some suckers in the right-wing media ecosystem who are perfectly content to regurgitate the talking points being handed down by dear leader Donald Trump. Like what I can only assume is this 11-year-old right-wing influencer named Brian Hollyand, which is apparently the name of a real person and not a 19th century British paperboy. He wrote, "Breaking, Trump just announced drug prices will be coming down by 500, 600, 800, even 1,200%. Yes! Isn't it interesting how they can't actually celebrate the accomplishments because those accomplishments never actually happen, and so instead, they just celebrate these announcements that never actually materialize? Someone should probably let Brylan know that mindlessly regurgitating mathematically illiterate proclamations from a guy who couldn't pass a 9th grade math test doesn't actually make drug prices cheaper. You know what does make drug prices cheaper, though? The Inflation Reduction Act's provision that lowered the cost of prescription drugs that Republicans voted against. Meanwhile, you know what Republicans voted for as it relates to healthcare? The One Big Beautiful Bill, which actually cut healthcare from 17 million Americans. And look, I know that this video has been pretty sarcastic and tongue-in-cheek most of the time, but my earnest message here is this. Recognize what Donald Trump is doing, giving himself credit for non-existent, mathematically impossible accomplishments that will not happen. Drug prices won't go down because the action here that Donald Trump took amounts to writing a letter to pharmaceutical companies requesting that they lower prices. That's it. That's the move that he's touting. He wrote a letter and then spent the next week filleting himself every chance he got for cutting drug prices, which did not happen. He literally didn't do anything. But what he did do, what actually passed, is to ensure that tens of millions of Americans would lose actual health care, actual prescription drugs, actual life-saving medicine. That part's real. That's not a talking point or a slogan. It happened. Trump wanted it. He got his minions in Congress, in the House and the Senate, to vote for it, and then Trump signed it into law. If he wants to take credit for a big change in healthcare in this country, that's the change he owns. Let's see if Mr. Hollyand will tweet about that, or if he reserves his tweets only for the incomprehensible ramblings of a guy who would round out the bottom quartile in remedial math. So my message to Trump supporters is this. You voted for Trump because he promised to take care of you. He promised that he understood your pain. He said that the rent was too high, that housing was too high, that groceries were too high, that eggs were too high. And look, I get the appeal. But the reality is that when he got into office, not only did he not bother helping you, not only did he exacerbate those high costs by engaging in a doomed trade war that sent the cost of everything surging even higher, but on top of all of that, the only things he did expend his political capital on was himself, giving himself a tax cut, buying himself a 747 jet to the tune of $1 billion paid for by American taxpayers, getting himself a $200 million ballroom, doubling his own net worth to over $5 billion. How many of you out there doubled your net worth in the last 6 months? How many of you out there have got your hands on $2.5 billion since January? Every single day has been a clinic in padding his own bottom line, elevating his own companies, boosting his own crypto, hawking his own bullshit products. Trump's presidency is not about you, it is about Trump. I mean, hell, the guy promised to release the Epstein files because it's what you demanded. And instead of doing that, he helped Epstein's pedophile accomplice because he himself is implicated in those files. This guy has played you for fools every single day. His presidency is a graveyard of broken promises, never ended the Russia-Ukraine war, never brought prices down, never lowered inflation, never got accountability for Epstein's victims, never passed a middle-class tax cut, never made IVF free, because those were never real things. They were empty promises to fool the rubes into voting for him. Republican officials may claim to hate the Democrats, but there is no one that they have more contempt for than their own voters. Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they are willing to cater to this administration. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link right here on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support me and my team. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.